Hey everyone, welcome back to the shop. Today's episode we're going to be doing part 2 of our Dana 44 HD axle rebuild. The last time we saw this axle, we did the teardown and kind of an inspection on it. Well, today we're going to do final assembly on it. We have all the new parts here, we have them all cleaned up, so we're going to go assemble this axle. So let's go dig into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Thanks for watching. We're going to do this Dana 44 today and get this thing all assembled up and get it all ready to go and ready for paint. Get it so we can put it on our chassis over there and get our chassis, rolling chassis. But first off, I wanted to kind of do an overview of what I did the part 1 of this axle rebuild. If you missed that, go ahead and go back and watch that. We did the teardown of this axle and did a lot of inspection along the way and saw the parts we needed and parts we didn't need, things along that. Here's all the pieces and parts that we took apart. These pieces along here, we got our spindles, our knuckles, and our hubs, stuff like that. And of course we have all of our new parts along here. But before we get going on installation of stuff, I wanted to point out a few things that I didn't show on the last episode. I talked about the inside, and as I said in the last episode, we're not going to do a full axle rebuild, so all of this is staying. It's all in really good shape. One way I know that is I took the cover off, and the oil in the cover and everything that ran out is all nice and clean, all same color and everything. Didn't have a bunch of metal glitter in it, a bunch of pieces of metal and stuff. Didn't have any water intrusion in it, so if it had water in it, it'd be kind of a gray or milky white oil, so it didn't have any of that. Just nice, clean, fresh oil. The ring gear and everything looks nice and good, and the pinion, we don't have any slop in our pinion bearing up here, so all that is good. We're not going to mess with that. I am going to change the pinion seal, which is this right here. Going to change out that pinion seal because it is leaking, so I am going to do that. But in here everything's good. I'm just letting the oil run out of here and get this clean, this old oil as best I can out of here, and then we'll put fresh oil back when it's in the truck and ready to go. So we'll put new oil in it there. While we're talking about the center section here, I thought I would point out this is a good time to check your breather. This is your breather here for the center section here, and this one is actually plugged up. It's a little bitty hole on these things. It's pretty common for them to be plugged up, so it's a good time to check that. If it's plugged up and you use the axle a lot, or if you're using it any, that oil in there is going to heat up. And when that oil heats up, it's going to pressurize your differential here, and it'll push oil out your seals here, and you'll get oil in your axle tubes and all that kind of stuff. So it's good to have that breather unplugged and free. So I'll stuck some wire and stuff in there and get that freed up. But first things first, we're going to get the bearing cups and hammer those into the outer ends of the axle here, and then we'll start assembly with the knuckles. So we're going to get after that. Well guys, I have the knuckle here all put together, as you just saw. One thing, the backing plate for the drum brakes, that backing plate that everything hooks to on the drums, it goes on top of the spindle here, and then the bolts go through that. Well, I'm going to leave that off so I can sandblast this area around here. It's really hard to get to with that plate right here. So I'm going to leave that off and cover up the spindle here. And then I can blast all this and paint this real good, and I'll paint that backing plate separate, and then I'll take these bolts back out and assemble it. So that's what's going on there, but wanted to mention that so you didn't see this and wonder what holds that backing plate on. So it goes on here, and then these bolts do that all the way through that and the spindle. One thing I didn't mention up here on the kingpins up here, there are shims. Right here's the shims. This is for the other side, but this is what they look like. They go under this cap here, and that sets your bearing clearances for those tapered bearings in your spindle here, or in your knuckle. So if they're tight, you can add some shims. If they're loose, you can take some shims out. Typically, this is kind of how I like to set them up, just a little bit tight. You know, I don't want it flopping back and forth loose. For one, it's new bearings. Those new bearings will kind of seat in and will get a little bit looser as you use it. But you don't want it so tight that you kind of have to do this. You don't want it to be like that. You want to be able to kind of grab it and turn it kind of like that, because you can wear, because these bearings up here aren't like wheel bearings where they spin around all the time. You know, they're just in one spot. They just work back and forth just a little bit. So in your spots where you're moving a lot like that, if they're real tight, they can actually cause a lot more accelerated wear right here in the center. So anyway, that's kind of how I like to set them up. Other people probably have their own preferences, but you know, I still like them to be fairly tight so they're not just floppy loose. So that's that. In the video, if you saw me hammering the bearing cups in, I was using this brass punch. That's just so I don't mar damage the cup in any way when I'm hammering it in. There are cup installers, bearing installers for that kind of job. That's probably the best way to do it. I don't have one of those. I just, you know, the old school way of doing it, I guess. Just hammering it in, but just be careful, because you can damage that cup when you're doing it that, especially if you're using a steel punch of some sort to hammer that in. But those went together pretty easy and smooth. I didn't have to adjust the shims any. Usually you don't, unless things are just way different. On if somebody had an old wore out bearing they're trying to take up some slack in, you might have to adjust that. But I did get my other bearings for the other side. They actually were Timken. The part numbers are the same. The 23100 for the, I think those are the bearings, and then the cups 23556. So I'm gonna start assembling that other end and get the spindle on there, and I gotta get the diff cover on, and I gotta put that pinion seal in, and then this axle will be ready to clean up and paint. So I'll be doing that, and as well as the outside, the hubs and everything. I'm gonna do those. I'm just probably gonna do those off of the axle. And then I'll finish assembling all of that once everything's painted. And then it'll be going on the frame here. So let's get after it. Well, here I got the other side all put together. It went together pretty smooth, but I wanted to show you before we got too far along the brake backing plate and how all that goes together, since I'm not doing it right now. See, it slides in there. There's actually a step on the spindle there that goes in, and then the bolts and then directly go through that. So these bolts here hold the backing plate for the brakes and the spindle on the knuckle. So that's how those go together. Wanted to show you that. But I'm just going to be putting it together like this. So like I said, so I can paint. I'm going to sandblast this knuckle right here and paint all this. You know, this won't get painted because this is inside the hub and the bearings and everything. So I'm going to tape all this off, but I'll blast this because when this, I'll just show you. When this backing plate is on here, it's just a little bit trickier to get. See back in here, just a little bit trickier to get back in here and get that all cleaned up good and painted good. The last axle I did, I had it all assembled and then painted it, and this right here, I was fighting this a lot. So I'm just going to try to avoid all that, and I'm going to do the hub and the drums and everything separate, you know, all blown apart, and then I'll assemble them all once they're painted. And then hopefully I can do a lot better job of getting all this painted up nice and pretty. But anyway, guys, so far this axle is going together great. I haven't had any problems on the knuckles here, and haven't found any major problems elsewhere with it. So right now I'm going to get this thing, try to get this thing cleaned up and painted, and I'll show you guys some sneak peeks on it, how we're getting along as I do that. And hopefully before too long we'll be assembling the hubs and the brakes and getting it put on the chassis. So let's go get after it. Well, guys, got the axles painted up. Used the same paint as the chassis. That two-part really hard stuff. I thought it went down pretty good. I got the backing plates and all the small parts and everything painted as well. I have this one bolted on here, so you can see how that was supposed to go on there. Still have yet to do the other side. I have to do the wiper seals and finish installing all the brakes and then the hub assemblies. Down here I'm messing with the hubs. I'm figuring out these lockout hubs, the worn Locomatics, the new old stock ones I'm using on this axle. Here's the dial on the end there, and the outer diameter of this, I don't know what you call it, this spacer ring, doesn't quite match the edge of the hub, and I didn't paint that surface, so I'm gonna have to paint a little bit on that surface so you can see that right there. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit of paint work there so you can't see that, so it doesn't stick out as bad. Then I have to disassemble all these and clean them because it has 50-year-old grease in there. Luckily, this set did have the instructions, which has a diagram of how they go together. Unfortunately, it doesn't show the inner workings in here, so I'm gonna have to be real careful and try to pay attention of how all this goes together. See, there's all these little pins in here that can fall out and get out of place, and kind of complicated. So I'm gonna have to take my time on that and see if I can get this grease and everything cleaned up. But for now, I'm going to start assembling the brakes and everything on the rear end, and or the front end, sorry, the front axle, and we'll see how all that goes together. I did forget to paint my drums, so when I touch up these hubs here, I'll have to mix up some more paint and paint my drums so they're not just bare metal. But anyway, I'm going to get starting on the brakes there and show you guys what's going on. guys, I have the spindles and brakes all assembled here. We have the drum and hardware kit, wheel cylinders, everything all assembled. We also got the seals right here, the wiper seals for the closed knuckle portion assembled. Right now I'm working on the hubs. We're going to put those on next. So I have the bearing cups installed. I also have the bearings. These are the outer bearings, and then these are the inner bearings. Right now I'm going to pack them with grease and get our seal in here. There's a seal that goes right here that seals in the spindle. And then we can get those hubs installed. And then we'll get the axle nuts in, or the wheel nuts, spindle nuts, whatever you want to call them. And the new old stock worn Lockomatic hubs, they actually replaced the factory ones with some different ones. So I have to do, luckily I have the instructions that came with these right here. I have to do some reading and see what all they had changed out. But we'll get all that assembled. And then I also got my drums painted up because I forgot to paint those. So those are all painted up. And once we get it all assembled, we'll see how it looks. Well guys, we got the hub on there. Got it seated on there all the way. I said earlier that the hubs that I have, the worn hubs, they replaced the factory lock nut for the spindle, on the spindle nut. And actually I read the directions and it doesn't. What I thought, this right here was I thought what they were replacing it with, but actually that is the drag shoe nut. These really early hubs are kind of complicated, but here's the factory nuts. I thought I would demonstrate how they work, so you're not just seeing me assemble them and wondering how they work. This is the inner piece. You can see there it has that pin right there. So you screw that down, and I screw them down by feel. There actually is a tool that goes on here, and I think you can. There's a specific drag number or torque number, but I just do them by feel. Over the years, you know, you kind of get a feel of how tight you want your wheel bearings to be. So I screw that one down, and then you take this intermediate piece or locking ring. See, it has this tab right here. Well, that coincides with a groove on your spindle, which is right there. So that lines up in that groove like that, and these holes line up with that pin. So you have to get that lined up to where to fall in one of the holes, and this in that groove keeps it from spinning. And then this third lock nut, it goes on top of here and sandwiches the whole unit together, so that that piece can't come, you know, sliding off of there and allow the inner nut to turn. So all that stacks up like that, and then I'll be sliding this one on, and then this drag shoe assembly. These are pads, I guess, so it drags. Haven't figured out quite the reason for that yet, but I'm going to stack it all up, and hopefully it works, and hopefully we have enough room in there for that all stack up to work, because it only has this piece with like the sheet metal type of locking ring that kind of sandwiches over it, and you bend a tab over. But it does say these three parts may vary by vehicle model, and they're always basically the same, but hopefully that means that it'll work for this model. Anyway, we'll see if we can get this thing together, and I'll fill you guys in if we have any problems. Okay, we have a problem here. First off, I got that's how the assembly would be on a factory setup with the factory lockout hubs. The inner piece and then the locking ring and the outer piece. but see, that's taking up all of your spindle there, the threads on your spindle. So there's no room for this drag collar for the lockout, the new lockout hub. Like I said, these are the worn aftermarket ones, the new old stock ones. So yours are probably not like this. So this is how you would assemble your axle if you're going together with like the modern worn premium hubs or the factory hubs or something of that nature. I'm trying to use these old ones. So what I'm thinking what we're going to end up doing is replacing that inner locking ring with this one, and then replacing the outer locking ring with this one. I'm guessing that's what I'll have to do since there's no other room for the spindle there. And these instructions don't show the 3-piece style spindle nut application here. So kind of going off the seat of my pants and seeing how that all is going to fit. I know that that drag collar has to be in the right location right there so it fits into the hub. So if I can get it stuck in there, I need to grease that up. But there's these pads in here with this spring, and I guess they drag on that. But anyway, I'm going to fiddle around with this and see if I can figure out how it goes together. Well guys, here's the completed product. As you just saw, I did get the hubs figured out and together. Ended up replacing these two OEM pieces with the pieces in my hub kit, and all that worked together great. It had set screws in that outer locking piece, which locks it even further to that locking ring in the center of those two. So hopefully that's all locked together and tight. And then this center piece right here has a drag clutch thing that goes over that collar, and it drags on the, I don't know why they have it all that complicated stuff in there, but I guess it works. I have tested it out. It's in the lock position now. You can see I spin this and it spins the yoke over there. So the axle shaft in the axle here is connected to your hub. And if I move this to the free location, you gotta spin it all the way around. Now it's in the free location. Now the center hub can rotate free of the axle. So all that's working, and I thought they turned out really nice. You can see a little bit of that gasket left over here, but I don't think it's too bad. That the outer diameter of this, the outer diameter of the factory hub is not exactly the same, but it's pretty close. I am missing the countersunk screws that screw into the drum that hold it in place. These drums I got aren't countersunk, so you put the screw in there and it would stick out too far and it would contact the wheel. So I'm either gonna have to countersink this drum or just leave them out. They're not necessary, and, you know, as far as the assembly goes, because once you bolt your wheel on there, it holds the drum in place. It's kind of just when you take the wheel off that the drum would be loose. So I'll see if I can get something to fit there. But overall, I got this other side put together off camera. It turned out the same. So everything went together great. Also off camera, I got that pinion seal replaced. It's just pull that yoke out there, get the old seal out, and put the new seal in there. So got that new pinion seal put in. But anyway, guys, like I said, these hubs are new old stock worn units. They're pretty hard to come by. So you probably won't have these, but right here are a couple of options you might have. This is the set of warns that you can get right now that they still make. These are the worn premiums, and they just bolt on real simple. They just bolt on you know, they don't have all that complicated stuff that all this had, but it also doesn't have that ring. They just bolt on like this right here, if you can see. So these are the ones you can buy new. The part number on these is 9072 for the Warren Premiums, and these are the factory units that were on this axle, the Dana hub locks. Here's the internal pieces in there. The reason I just didn't go with these is because I didn't think they were going to clean up just near as nice as I wanted to be for this truck, so I'm saving these for maybe a patina truck, or maybe a driver truck, or something where they would fit better, just because the condition aren't that great there. So anyway, guys, if you have any questions, hit me up down below in the comments, and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. I also have a Facebook group, Bumpside High Boys on Facebook. We talk a lot about these old axles and these old trucks, so hit up Bumpside High Boys on Facebook. If you have any more questions, you can get on there and ask some questions. Guys will help you out. Anyway, guys, I hope this helped you out with your highboy restorations, or just getting your old highboy back on the road, this Dana 44 HD rebuild. Like I said, if you have any questions about your axle, get down in the comments below. I'll try to answer as many as I can. Can't answer everything, unfortunately. But anyway, guys, I hope you liked this video. Give it a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe for more. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys.